To see you again, man. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be back. Yeah, great to see you, man. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. It's interesting, right? We're talking about Hacked, a double entendre of rage-fueled karma, and it's interesting because the life of an actor is really kind of on to the next, right? On to the next journey until that journey comes back, right? This does a really successful film festival run. Now we're talking about like in June, it's going to be available VOD and DVD. It's kind of crazy, right? Like you talk about it for a bit, then you do something else, and then we're back talking about Hacked, right?
I know. It's crazy how this, this whole life goes. It's nuts, and and also it doesn't help that I've made fun of Shane for it so many times. The title of the film is such a tongue twister. Like it's hard for even me to remember. Hacked, rage fuel, devil entendre of rage fueled karma.
I
Yeah,
was all
it's
excited
wild.
because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get it. And then I don't know if people go
Yeah.
back. You saw that too. Like I was confident, and then I had to look after Rage.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
No, like a lot going on in this film, and one of those films too, where there's so much going on. They have like the active and passive watching, right? But like you'll miss a lot if you don't pay attention when you watch this movie. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I've described this movie to I just finished another movie with Shane, and I was talking to one of my co-stars about Hacked, and I was like, yeah, you're in for a while. It's basically it's like it, at least to me, it feels like I mean, I don't use TikTok, but I imagine like on Shane's TikTok algorithm, like scrolling through that for about 90 minutes. That's kind of what Hacked, watching Hacked feels like, in a good way too. Like it's a fun ride for sure. But yes, it absolutely is one of those where you have to pay attention like the whole time.
And I'm sure you and Shane maybe talked about it, but this kind of like anytime you work on something that's genre bending, right? There's always going to be a lot of conversations of like, okay, I have this script, or even before that, you have a deck or like a pitch deck and everything. It's like, okay, like this is cool. We're going to do some things that are over the top, that are going to have some laughs. It's going to be gory. It's going to have some horror. Like, it's always interesting. Take me through that, like, process of that script to screen, right? Like, seeing, kind of hearing about all these, like, genre bending elements, but then actually getting there and starting to film it, so to speak, and see everything come to life.
Man, it was just crazy. The when I'd gotten the email from my one of my co-stars from Walking Dead, Katelyn Nacon, who had known Shane for like forever, and she was like, she sent me the basically like the all the pitch materials, which was the script and a couple of other things, and she was like, she sent it over to me, and she was like, don't read the script, listen to the audiobook instead. And so what he did is he had recorded a read through of the script with a bunch of, a handful of the cast that was already attached, and then, just pulled together some other actor friends to come in and just do a read through the script. And he recorded it and then put in like sound effects and music and all sorts of stuff to make it into what felt like, an audiobook. I made the mistake of ignoring her advice and just reading the script, which it was a huge mistake because it is about as crazy as the movie. Like if you try to imagine in that film what the script looks like, you're probably pretty close to what it would, because it's like there's color, it's color coded, there's like pictures, it's like it's a crazy stream of consciousness. So honestly, I showed up on set really not knowing what to expect, but it ended up just being truly the best time of our lives. Like the whole montage at the start where, he's going off about how, all this stuff happened to them, but like we just came together and had the best time of our lives. It is so true. It was such a great time.
Was there anything that really kind of, changed or was a lot different in your head playing this character, like until you got there, so to speak, or what you like, what it came together and everything? Was it what you thought it was going to be after like reading the script in the audiobook and everything?
I think so. Yeah, it was really interesting to like kind of as we progressed filming, we started to kind of learn more about about Rob Huberton, this guy, and like, figuring out what his past actually is and like why he does the things he does. And it allowed for us a lot of creative freedom on set because we had there's like a big monologue at the end where he's talking about, how he just like why he does what he does. And we came up with a couple different versions of that monologue, like a day or two before we shot it, where we were like, okay, we can go down this like pulling on the heartstrings side, or we can go down like the, maniacal evil classic villain side, and just to give him options in the edit. And it worked out great because I think he ended up using kind of portions of both, and ended up being this cool combination of this weird guy. So yeah, it did kind of like, come into fruition on set.
Well, it's really interesting because, in the beginning of this interview, I talked about like the horror comedy component of this film, Hacked. And it's like, it's funny because, well, it's interesting to think about the fact that like the internet just in general, right, has the capabilities of just like in terms of real life being very scary, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think like like our short film that we did, Adjoining, that Andy Chen was the DP on, that kind of it's been out for a while. You know what I mean? So like not spoilers, but like it has it reveals that it is indeed like about the dark web in a lot of ways, right? And I find like that's its own thing, right? Where you think about all these like the hacking and like the crypto and like all these things that kind of happen. I mean, that's its own thing too, right? Like the internet could be considered like a horror genre, just that stuff.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you go and ask, like, just, I feel like the majority of people nowadays have had something hacked of theirs, whether it be like social media or, some old account somewhere. It's like, yeah, absolutely. So, something like this happening, and well, it was a phishing, kind of email, but, but still, like, getting hacked is a real thing, and like it
Yeah.
happens. And yeah, it's scary. It sucks.
I remember, do you remember those like do you remember those days where people had MacBooks and they're talking about the fact that if like the camera was on, like you could see there was like the little lights on the
Yes.
top that like stuff like that.
Yep.
Like even going back then, like the
Yep.
idea of like someone just like hacking your
Watching you. Yeah. Yeah.
camera and watching you, absolutely. Well, like
Yeah.
were there any conversations about that kind of component of it, like the hacking and the phishing component specifically, talking to Shane about that?
Anytime we were trying to piece together those parts of the story, it always came back to just the comedy side of things, of
Yeah.
like really kind of just blowing it out of proportion in trying to, the most funny but not like, like the right amount of campiness, for it. So there wasn't as much well, there were actually a couple times where um there would be, some line of dialogue that how we were like, it kind of makes more sense if they're, a bit more technical here, for an FBI agent, they would probably know a little bit more than kind of dumbing it down. So
Yeah.
yeah, so there were times when we were like, okay, maybe we can like make these guys a little bit smarter, but keep that like dumb bombastic energy.
Really cool segue to my next question, because part of that kind of energy, like this is a film at times that really goes like certain things. I don't want to go into spoilers, but certain things in this film really go 0 to 100, right? Like you're kind of like, and it's funny because you were on a television show, The Walking Dead, where in episodes, but even just kind of like 4 or 5, like it was very slow burn. There's in a lot of Walking Dead episodes, right? Where it was like a 3, 4 episode build up until something like really crazy happened. But then you have this film that's like the opposite of that, where it's just like certain scenes like 0 to 100. Does the mindset kind of change preparation wise for those type of kind of paces of content, or is it all storytelling for you at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think so. I think like I mean, personally, I love, and the majority of the scenes that I end up doing in like my acting class or auditions are, more of those like high kind of stakes emotional stuff, more so than the, kind of like slow burn thing, which, both of them totally have their place and they're both great. And I think
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. I don't know if there's too much different preparation wise. There's definitely a different on set vibe. I think like with the more intense stuff, everyone is a bit more locked in and is more aware of each other, in an interesting way, and ready to help each other out, which I think is a cool and fun vibe to have on set for sure.
I feel like we're also in kind of a day and age where, there's a lot of content out there and a lot of subgenres. And you look at like zombies and like, the supernatural stuff and like the sci-fi kind of horror and the technology stuff. all those fans kind of eat it all up. And I guess my next question for you too is like, when you get to go to these conventions and meet these fans, right? And specifically maybe like if they're talking to you about Walking Dead, there's so much like material, right? Like so many past kind of seasons of The Walking Dead and a lot of moments with Carl. And I'm wondering, you like kind of we said in the beginning of the interview, it's on to the next, right? Like you do these seasons of Walking Dead, and then you wrap, and then like it's out of your hands, right? People watch them. But I'm sure people come up to you and say, wow, I really love that scene or that moment. Or maybe you're not even thinking about that, right? You're like, oh, that's true. Does that ever kind of determine, like, do you ever think about that when a fan comes out to you and brings up like a scene you didn't really think about much? And then does that maybe become a very like favorite Carl scene in your mind after they bring it up? You know what I mean by that? Like, it's interesting, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, thinking back to the, the scene where he's eating chocolate pudding on the roof, that scene is like, it's just another line item on the call sheet, for us to like, shoot it and then on to the next. So that's 100%, happens all the time. And in both Walking Dead and then in film as well, you just do a scene and then you're just on to the next. Yeah. It's wild.
It is crazy. I can't wait for people to see, or we're going to do it, Hacked, a double entendre of rage-fueled karma. June 2nd, it's going to be available on DVD and VOD, so you're going to be able to check that out. Chandler, always great catching up with you, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Likewise. Thanks so much, man.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Chandler Riggs and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.